Hey everyone, this is Nitro. In this third and final portion of the Nitro setup videos for this week, I am going to be going over my characters that I'm going to be using for Summit Arena. Now, I should mention before I begin that, first of all, my Summit Arena team of 15 characters is not complete. This is the case for both equipment as well as for my characters that I've selected. In large part, for the early stages of Summit Arena, I will be bringing characters that already have their double class mastery complete, even if they're not necessarily ideal for Summit Arena. Other than that, I'm still trying to finalize a few of the characters that I plan to bring, because I still haven't quite decided who would fill out those last few positions due to the runestone limitations. I currently only have 4 remaining. So I'll finalize my party of 15 for the initial stages. I'll have to finish up, for example, Juggler as my secondary tank, and then after that I could start choosing to level up other characters to increase my versatility for Summit Arena. So in very many ways, I'm still in kind of the experimental stage. I'll get 15 characters to start, and then we'll go from there afterwards. In any case, let's begin by talking about the characters. First, because you need 15 characters, you're effectively going to need 15 sets of gear. For a free-to-play like me, who does not have the privilege of the Flag of Courage giving me an additional Goddess trial run every day, I have far less SSRs as well as far less Oraculum ore, right? Whether people who have that Flag of Courage would be getting an additional run of Goddess Trial every single day, right? So they get 3 more chances of SSR equipment drops daily, and as well as Oraculum ore for the stage completion. At Nightmare difficulty mode, that is 70 Oraculum ore per battle. So if you do 70 Oraculum ore times 7 days, they're getting 490 more Oraculum ore every week. And they can use this Oraculum ore to either buy more Epic Martial Spirits or gamble to get weapons or armors or headgear. So basically what this means is people who have that Flag of Courage have far more SSRs than I do. And they will be able to basically have best in slot equipment for all 15 characters. The only exception to this would be accessories, because accessories are ultimately random. Nonetheless, what this means is, for me personally, as free-to-play, I have to basically use whatever SSR I got is what I'll throw onto my characters. Even if they're not the ideal one, the combat performance is not... I don't think it's going to be game-breaking for me, so I just throw on whatever SSRs at level 50 I've got. Those are the ones I use. Put simply. So in addition to that, most players who have been putting money into the game will have purchased gold multiple times because of how expensive the enchants are in general, right? Rolling SSR enchants costs 25,000 gold per enchant, right? Rolling rare enchants only costs 5,000, but you get less enchant values in general, right? The SSR enchants are guaranteed to be 3 values for your enchants. The values are random, but you're guaranteed to get 3. Whereas the SR enchants, you have a chance of just getting 2. You can occasionally get 3, but it's randomized. In addition, I will link in the video description below the enchant page from the Langrisser Wikia. And let me just quickly bring that up quickly to cover it just briefly. Just give me a moment. Okay. So here we are. Basically, every enchant, based on the kind of item it is, has certain maximum values. For example, weapons can actually get plus 15% int and plus 15% attack, as you can see right here. Whereas armors, for int and attack, they can only get 5%. 5% int, 5% attack is the maximum for them. On the other hand though, they can get 15% defense, 15% hit points, and 15% magic defense. Helmets is basically identical to armor in terms of enchant values, and accessories, basically everything caps out at 10%. Except for the crit rate, which can go up to 15%. And you can see it's divided into 4 separate ranges. Okay, the ranges have a certain percentage of occurring. So, and it's shown here. Rare Enchant Scrolls can only have the first 3 ranges. SR Enchant Scrolls can have all 4 ranges, but it only has a 2% chance of you getting range 4 values. And SSR Scrolls have a 5% chance of getting range 4 values, and they have a 0% chance of the range 1 crappy values. So that's the reason why you want to roll SSR Scrolls if possible, because you always get 3 stats and potentially a higher chance of getting multiple stats in the range 4 section. At least it's a higher chance since it's 5% as opposed to 2%. So that's why enchant rolling over and over again is so important, but it's so luck based. But the limitation is, once again, gold. If you don't buy gold, you don't have enough gold to roll enchants. Long story short, that's basically summed it up. I've bought gold a few times, I think. I think in total I've bought 2.4 or 3.6 million gold. And that's given me basically enough to kind of roll some enchants, but I'm still broke, and I don't have all my bond upgrades either, right? Bond upgrades are very expensive, you know, as they upgrade, they get more and more costly. And similarly, I'm very capped on gold for the training ground upgrades as well. Because training grounds are pretty much the exact same, right? For example, if I want to upgrade my Shrine Maidens to level 10, it's once again 410k gold, right? You do 3 upgrades of soldiers from level 9 to level 10, and that's 1.2 million gold right there. So gold is absolutely one of the limiting factors. You have to basically consider buying gold, or else you slowly progress like I am doing. So with that said, with these limitations stated, you know, you just gotta kind of make do the best you can as a free-to-play. Since you're not buying gold. So I have not done very many enchant rolls recently because I just can't afford it. I'm still too busy building up equipment. I just go for a decent enchant value as opposed to ideal enchant values. So the end result is, compared to whales, I have a huge stat difference in my characters in general. For example, when I did I actually did a World Arena match in the gold level last week. Okay. And it was against Situation. There was a huge difference in the stats of our Landiuses. Okay. My Landius had roughly 1,000 hit points, and I think around 550 or so defense. This is my rough estimate. I can't recall right now. But in any case, Situation's Landius had 1,200 attack and around 700 defense. So there was plus 200 attack here, plus 150 defense here. There was just a huge stat difference, presumably because he's rolled SSR enchants to get ideal enchants, whereas I'm not quite at that level. And in terms of every character that we had, there was a similar stat difference. Now, it could have also been that his Landius had 5 stars or 6 stars, which resulted in that stat difference too, right? Whereas my Landius is only 4 stars. But the difference between free-to-play and having put money in the game is becoming clear. So I just wanted to give this preface before I start covering my characters, because I don't have ideal enchants, I don't have ideal equipment for most of my characters. I'm just building up the 15 sets of SSRs so that I can participate, and we'll see how far I can go. So, with all that said, at last, let's begin covering my characters. And the way I'm currently doing it, I will have 2 tanks, 3 healers, and 8 damage dealers configured for, I guess, for this weekend, basically. But 2 plus 3 plus 8 only adds up to, in total, 13 characters. So I still have 2 slots to fill. That is what the 4 runestones I currently have will allow me to do. I can do double class mastery on 2 more characters to raise my set of 13 characters up to the full 15. It won't be ideal characters initially, as I said, but at least I'll have the 15 characters up and running. So, the tanks will initially likely be Langrisser and Ledin, which means I'll probably be forced into using Ledin most of the time. I'm going to probably try to bring Juggler as well. I'll most likely put at least 2 runestones into my Juggler, so that at least he can be used as well. So I might end up with 3 tanks initially. I may have to remove Ledin. We'll see. But that's my initial plan. Yeah. 3 characters, Ledin, Langrisser, and Juggler, all complete. Ledin is going to run his gear as is. Oath of Justice, level 50, 9% hit points, 1% magic defense. There's no point for attack. Magic defense would cap out at 5%. Defense would cap out at 5% again. You know, hit points caps out at 10%. So this is an okay enchant, average, right? Theoretically, you can get 10%, 5%, 5%, as I mentioned. But I'm not aiming for ideal enchants. Next, Gaia's Armor. Gaia's Armor has a surprisingly good enchant. 10% defense, 11% hit points. From the enchant screen that I showed, this could be 15 and 15 at maximum. But once again, it's a enchant rolling thing that I don't think I can get. Aeneas' Helmet currently has 14% defense and 6 defense. Ideally, it would be, you know, like this, it would be defense and hit point percentage together, but I'm quite satisfied with this. You know what? I don't feel like it's worth wasting more scrolls and gold to roll a better enchant, so it works. And finally, King's Amulet. This is the questionable part, because Ledin has a King's Amulet and not an Overlord's Badge. It does give a pretty good enchant value, 8% defense and 6% magic defense, but the fact that it doesn't give my Ledin immunity to skills like Thousand Hooves could be a killer for Summit Arena. So we'll see. That's one major limitation that may prevent me from using Ledin as one of my tanks. I may have to jump into Juggler right away. So that's my Ledin. In terms of enchants, he actually has 2 crystals and 2 hard rocks. That way it gives him an additional 10% defense, 10% magic defense value. It's just maximizing his defense and magic defense, so he has a maximum value of attack. That's basically what my Ledin is built for. The second tank, Langrisser. And Langrisser is currently 4 out of 6 stars, so not quite complete yet, but his power rating is close to 6,000, which is very respectable since most of my characters are around that level at this time. In terms of skills, it's his faction buff, of course, Tranquility, and Indomitable. Skills can change depending on how things turn out. For Summit Arena, you're allowed to change your skills before the battle actually begins. But this will be his general skill combination. Soldier-wise, of course, he has the Royal Cavalry, which have been raised to level 10. And he does have his double class mastery, right? Just like Ledin, double class mastery is complete on these tanks. In terms of equipment, I've covered this before in a separate video when I talked about how to build Langrisser for Summit Arena or for PvP. But it's basically Overlord's Badge is required due to the immunity effects it grants, defense and magic defense reduction, attack and int reduction, and mobility reduction. So Thousand Hooves cannot be used on your tank. He has an Aeneas' Helmet as well, because it's boosting hit points and defense, making him more survivable, right? The enchant value here is ideally, 15% hit points, 15% defense, as always for tanks, but you'll take what you got. Mirror Armor, because is one of the options. Some people have mentioned, giving him, let's say, Bloodline or the Aeolus' armor. I don't have either of those, and Mirror Armor does counter Last Rites, so it's a rock-solid option. Once again, defense and hit points is the ideal enchant values, 15% each if you can get it. Ideal enchant versus what's realistic, as usual. You can see here I have 15% here, I have 15% here. It's not 30% in total, you know, but it's enough to be used. You know, it's basically once again, it's balancing the amount of gold you have versus what you need to upgrade. So this is just my temporary stats for now. I'll slowly re-roll these enchants, I imagine, as Summit Arena continues and progresses. Final piece of equipment is Dragon Slayer Gram with a high attack increase value. Ideally, it would be something like 15% attack, 10% hit points, you know, but that's once again the ideal option. As it is, once again, I just roll what I can use, which is 11% attack, which is very respectable. So that's pretty much my Langrisser enchants. In terms of the enchant, of course, it's Thorns, because I'm going to rely pretty heavily on Thorns to reflect damage to the enemies for PvP. In truth, what I find for PvP is the more skills you have that are percentage based, the better. That's basically it. PvP has a luck element to it, you know, and you're going to use a lot of these skills that have a luck element, because when they proc, you get an advantage. That pretty much sums it up. So there is my Langrisser tank. Next will be Juggler. And Juggler, I've talked about in terms of equipment, his ideal equipment, you know. My Juggler is not complete yet. This is probably going to be my equipment set if I run Juggler in Hydra form. If I run Juggler in Behemoth, it's going to completely change. But it's more or less kind of complete. Throne Guardian, because it gives more hit points, right? Gargoyle Jacket, because it gives hit points and increases his defense when he's attacked. Loki's Mask, hit points and increased defense value. Once again, enchants you want hit points and defense, and Juggler is the one that I've barely rolled enchants on, so you can see they're significantly worse than Ledin and Langrisser's enchants in general. Throne Guardian, right? Only a mere 4% attack. I mean, I haven't really rolled enchants on Juggler's equipment set yet. And currently, just for now, I have a level 20 Holy Arc on Juggler. This is probably going to change. It may end up being a Blood Pact to give Juggler his maximum hit points. I may leave it as this piece of equipment, Holy Arc, for a surprise damage reflect against any melee attackers. I may also change it to you know, something more like a Slayer's Emblem or my other Overlord's badge, which is currently on Leon, because that would allow me to have 2 tanks who are immune to mobility reduction. So I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do for this final slot. We'll see. It'll be a surprise. Long story short, I may even replace this Holy Arc with a Swordsmith medal if I manage to get one. So there's lots of options here for this, for the accessory for Juggler. I haven't quite decided yet, as I said. It's a decision I'll make later on as Summit Arena progresses. Because in the early stages, you don't truly need to get too serious about it. At least that's how I feel. So that's my current Juggler. So those are the 3 tanks. Next will be healers. And my plan for healers is initially I'm going to have 3, which is going to be Liana, Tiaris, and Chloe. Chloe is not quite complete yet as well, because she doesn't quite have access to her second, to all her classes. Yeah. Getting her access to the Star Glow skill will make her much more usable. Yeah. So Chloe, not quite complete yet, but I plan to have her complete, you know, by the next month for sure. You know, she might not be finished in August, but she'll 100% be finished by September. So, in terms of the 3 healers, in terms of gear, the only one that's truly complete in gear is Liana at this time. And Liana is running Blue Moon, Tenuous Robe, Yggdrasil Reef, and Holy Ring. All SSRs, all level 50s, and the enchant is going to be Full Moon, increasing her stats by 10%, as long as her hit points is above 80%. This is because I've what I feel is you need maximum int on your healers for PvP. I've been informed by multiple people that in PvP, very often battles can end up being tank plus healer versus tank plus healer. And the only way for you to be able to kill off the opponent in that kind of situation is if your tank combined with your healer can take down the enemy tank. So that's why int is important on your healer. So, and that's also why I got full moon instead of, let's say, the crystal enchant that I used to have. So once again, increasing int in general. I find in general for armors and helmets, you always want the hit point increase. Okay, you may want defense or magic defense. That depends on the character, but hit point increase is always important. Getting plus 30% hit points from these two pieces of equipment, if you can, is a huge advantage in terms of keeping your characters alive. As for your Blue Moon and your Holy Ring, which is your weapon and accessory slots, you generally want to increase your primary stat. For Liana, the primary stat would be intelligence, right? For melee attackers, it would be attack, right? The other values don't matter as much. That's what I feel. So there we go. That's pretty much my current setup for Liana. There's still room for improvement, you know. This could be plus 15% int, for example. And this is plus 3% int with plus 20 int. So it was a little bit awkward on this one. The interesting thing though about this enchant is due to her low int in general at 329, each 1% basically increases int by 3.3, right? So another 7% int is only equal to, let's say, 21 intelligence. So effectively, this almost adds up to a 10% int increase and 7% hit point increase, which kind of works out for the enchant value. So just an interesting point. That's not always the case because this is just because Liana tends to have low int due to her growth of int is being B. By comparison, if I'm bringing up, let's say, Leon, right, his attack value with S growth is 571. So each percentage value is worth 5.7 points. In his case, right, getting a plus 8 attack value or something is less than 2%. So it's kind of, you gotta kind of balance it out. That's the kind of how it works out. Alright, so there was Liana. She's currently 5 stars. I'm slowly going to grind her up to 6 stars. By September, she'll definitely be at 6 stars level. Tiaris is pretty much in the same boat. She's at 48 out of 150. So, you know, 100 more shards, you can get that in 20 days. So by September, she'll be at 6 stars as well. And Tiaris, her equipment is not complete either. Currently, it's just an Ulver staff, level 50. The rest are SR pieces of equipment. So she's one of the characters that needs a lot of improvement. But that applies to a lot of my characters in general. I have 15 sets of gear, but they're not 15 sets of full SSR gear. Finally, in terms of Chloe currently is unequipped, but what I will likely do is move Sophia's equipment to Chloe for the battles. Once again, both of these healers, Tiaris and even Chloe, if you can, you'll want the enchant of Full Moon, not Crystal. But for the initial stages, I may end up using the Crystal enchants, simply because the enchant values are already pretty good. For example, this goddess's left hand has plus 11% int, right? And once again, most of it is SR gear, and in fact, the armor is only level 20. So there's room for improvement, but I could upgrade this to level 30 pretty easily because I have a level 1 Galaxy Cloak available right now. But just once again, work in progress. There's no real rush for me to jump in and fully max everything out right away, when my true plan for Summit Arena is to be fully ready in the later stages of Summit Arena, which is, I guess, September-October period. Alright, so those are my 3 healers. Their enchant values need to be changed quite significantly, but that's how it goes for now. And now, let's talk about my 8 DPS characters that I'll be bringing. And most of the DPS that I'm bringing are going to be brought simply because they have double class mastery. Right? Leon will be brought as a DPS. He currently has Seal Guardian with the 11% attack plus 18 attack and 3% defense, and Aces Armor with the 14% hit point increase, Vampire Mask with a 9% hit point increase, 105 hit points, and 7% defense. And finally, the Overlord's Badge, which has 7% attack, 8 attack, and 3% defense. The Overlord's Badge is the one where I'm trying to decide whether to keep it on Leon or move it to my tank. But that's a decision that can be made in early September, not right now. Because, once again, in the early stages of Summit Arena, I'm not aiming for Langrisser rank right away. I'll probably aim to get into gold, but I should be able to get into gold with the current setup that I have. So there's my Leon configuration right now. Skills wise, you're going to change depending on your opponent, the map, and the characters that you end up being. For example, I've been told very often that for Summit Arena, Leon will very frequently actually bring his faction buff, because you may end up needing him to faction buff up other characters like Varna and Olivier, and it depends on who your party is. Imelda, though, is another part of this faction. So Leonhard, it all depends. But very often, because of the terrain, the heavy terrain in Summit Arena, you may end up bringing a faction buff rather than Chivalry, which can barely provide that much of a boost to Leon. Next, I will be bringing Elwyn, because Elwyn is 6 stars and he has double class mastery. The only thing about Elwyn is I'm going to have to change him up quite a bit for Summit Arena. The changes that I'll have to make is, first of all, he's no longer going to be infantry. I'm going to turn him into a Grand Marshal. That's one major change. The other change I will be making to Elwyn is I'm probably going to change his soldiers to Dragoons, rather than using Masked Maids or whatever. The reason to change Elwyn to Dragoons is because as a Lancer, he is vulnerable to infantry class. But with the Dragoons, the cavalry units, he loses that vulnerability, right? Or theoretically, he'll lose that vulnerability to getting one-shotted. That's how it's supposed to work. So, yeah. Dragoon soldiers, Lancer Elwyn, and equipment-wise, he can mostly use his current gear. The only thing that would have to change is the weapon, because as a Lancer, he can no longer use a Seal Guardian. Ideally, I would get a Ragnarok. So it ends up I need a Ragnarok, but the character I need the Ragnarok for ends up being Elwyn. And the reason for Ragnarok is so he can counter, once again, Last Rites, so that he can attack flyers that are at full hit points, and hopefully one-shot them with skills like Sword Soul. Yeah. So that's the status of my Elwyn. There will be a lot of configuration changes, and in fact, I'm probably going to have to re-roll all of these enchants on Elwyn as well, which I only realized now. The reason because Full Moon, Elwyn's biggest weakness in PvP is his lack of mobility, right? Full Moon does not address that. If I can re-roll these enchants to Breeze, right, that would address that issue a bit, in that he would have +2, he would have a chance to get +2 mobility. And whenever you have a 5 mobility Elwyn, that will help a lot. So that's one thing that's going to change quite a bit. Elwyn. After Elwyn will be Lena. Lena will also be brought because, once again, double class mastery. Right? She's, there's not much to say. She's my mage. She can AoE, she can single target strike. I currently have on my Lena Tenyo's Robe rather than her exclusive, which is the Black Bride. The reason I have this adjustment is because I really don't think Lana is going to need the Black Bride to one-shot targets as it is. You know, she already has so much one-shot potential with her high intelligence that, and having Dark Reaper, that you truly don't need the Black Bride for a debuff. At least that's how I feel. So she is pretty much fine as it is. The only thing I need to replace is the Sage's Hat, and I'm probably going to just fill this slot with either the Dark Crown or the Odin's Battle Helm. Haven't quite decided on which one yet, because once again, this is... I need to get more Epic Martial Spirits to upgrade these pieces of equipment. I also need more gold to upgrade these pieces of equipment, but that's another story entirely. So, you know, equipment set-wise, she's not complete. She's close to it. Enchant-wise, I will probably change her enchants. The only question is whether I change away from magic into breeze. Once again, just like Elwyn, I'm considering changing her to breeze enchants. So, yet another character who needs her enchants changed. Next is Bozol, and Bozol is fine as he is. Miracle Staff is really his best in slot for an additional chance of a random debuff. Galaxy Cloak is the one piece of equipment I may change, and the change would be to give him Baldur's White Robe, because the Baldur's White Robe will allow him to have a chance to not have his damage reduced in melee battles, which means he can do a full damage counterattack and hammer the enemy that's attacking him. So that is the one change that I may make. Replace this Galaxy Cloak with Baldur's White Robe. Actually, now that I think about it, the Dark Crown may potentially be replaced too. And the replacement would be this, the Soul Stealer headdress. Because Bozol is always using AoE strikes on the enemies, right? And this Soul Stealer headdress would add a second chance to silence enemies' active skills. So that way he can silence enemies via the Soul Stealer headdress and potentially silence enemies via seal. Yeah. So that's the one thing I may change on Bozol, Galaxy Cloak, and really 2 pieces of equipment. But Miracle Staff and Speed Boots are pretty much finalized. After Bozol, again, enchant values, they're not great. There's a 3% magic defense increase, 3% defense increase. I would probably like to re-roll this for, 10% hit points, 5% magic defense, but, gold limitations as always. Galaxy Cloak has a near perfect enchant. This is why it's tough for me to decide whether to replace this Galaxy Cloak or not. The fact that it has 13% magic defense and 7% hit points, it's very, very nice. Dark Crown, 7% magic defense, 13 magic defense. Overall, this enchant really could be re-rolled, and Dark Crown is a piece of equipment I can easily replace with, once again, the Soul Stealer headdress, which actually has 8% magic defense increase and 10 magic defense. So it's actually already has a slightly better or comparable enchant to the Dark Crown. As for the Speed Boots, once again, ideally it would be 10% hit points, 10% magic defense, but who has the gold or the Enchant Scrolls to keep rolling for those kind of values, right? In fact, I don't even see any clocks. Oh, there are 71 clocks enchants here. So, yeah, it is what it is. So there's Bozol. And we move on to my 5th damage dealer, which is Zerida. And Zerida does not have a perfect set of gear at this time. Monkey King's Vest is the best in slot piece of equipment for assassins, but it's only best in slot if you have an extreme magic bow. I currently have a Bloody Melody, so the Monkey King's Vest doesn't particularly help much, because with a Bloody Melody, what's going to happen is I'm going to end up taking, when I get melee attacked, I get damage reduction because Zerida is ranged. So the Monkey King's Vest, increasing my Zerida's attack and crit rate, doesn't particularly help because I won't do that much damage to the enemy in melee anyways. Not without an extreme magic bow. Other than that, she currently has just a Twilight helmet simply because it was level 40. I got 3 of them. I just need one more to have this at level 40. At level 50. It's not her best in slot piece of equipment, but once again, it's kind of a, hey, this is the helmet I have, so this is the helmet I'm giving her kind of scenario. You can see right here that in truth, I don't have very many helmets for flyers and assassins in general. So it is what it is. Last but not least is the Judge's Talisman that she has, which this is acceptable. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's an acceptable piece of equipment for her. You know, it's a piece of equipment that increases attack, so you don't really need anything else. Obviously, if you have multiple Overlord's badges and you can give her one, by all means give it to her, but who has that many Overlord's badges to spare? Similarly, I could also replace this Judge's Talisman with a Lone Star Armlet. So, Lone Star Armlet, right? But this is just, it's not a huge dramatic increase in my opinion. The difference here is instead of defense, you get hit points. And you'll get a plus 10% attack and defense if there's no friendly units with 2 blocks. Whereas that one gives plus 8% attack. So, and then plus additional 12% attack against holy units. So which one's better? It's honestly hard to say. But this setup works for my Zerida for now. And it's how I'm going to leave her for a while, really. So, there's 5 of my 8 planned characters. The 6th DPS character I'm bringing is likely to be Bernhard. Even though my Bernhard is not ideal, he is one of my characters that have double class mastery. In truth, I was truly hoping to get a Converter from the what's it called? From the Bracer Force banner, the equipment banner, when I had summoned 70 times on it, and I failed to get anything except for clothesline pulls. It really affected my strategy in terms of the characters that I use, because if my Bernhard did manage to get a Converter, he would have 2 range on his sword dance, right? Doing his sword dance, instead of having a 1 ring span, it would become a 2 ring span. So that would have increased the versatility of my Bernhard and made him much more useful. As it is, he'll probably end up running either a Seal Guardian or a Bloodsword Hunting. The big problem here is if he runs the Bloodsword Hunting, it's additional fixed damage attacks, which is nice, but the flip side is there's a reason why all the top players were trying to get as many copies of the Swordsmith medal, or during the Bracer Force emblem, they were Bracer emblems. And the reason for that is because the Bracer emblems and Swordsmith medals grants immunity to fixed damage. So basically, it means Bernhard with Sword Dance won't hurt them at all. But against enemies without that accessory, Sword Dance will rip characters apart, right? Especially if Bernhard is having Bloodsword Hunting for 1 fixed damage strike, Rupture for a 2nd fixed damage strike, and then the Sword Dance for the AoE strike. So it'll only have 1 range, but we'll see how it works out. Bernhard will kind of be a work in progress. It's going to be very luck based. For example, if I manage to get Apex boots, so that I have plus attack boots that also give plus 1 mobility, Bernhard becomes a very, very viable and useful character. So we'll see. Bernhard's a character I'll likely bring regardless at the end of the day, simply because he has a lot of versatility. He can be a secondary tank if you decide to bring parry. He has a faction buff to buff up your other characters. He can have hegemony to debuff and dispel enemy buffs and decrease their defense. He can even bring, shield bash as well as sword dance with rupture. So lots of versatility. You can change up your build of Bernhard depending on your opponent, and it just simplifies things. He may not necessarily be a character I want to get picked for my party, but he can't hurt either. At least that's how I see it. So with this, I've now talked about 6 of the 8 damage dealers that I'm bringing. And the 7th one is Listel, who I've been building up desperately. Listel with Mindbore, Blood Dance, and I'm probably going to have a commit of Runestone into her to get the Reaper's Touch, but that combination of skills with Seal will make her very useful against most players. Players who have tons of Swordsmith medals or Bracer emblems will basically hard counter my Listel, but hey, I can't plan my party based on the top tier Langrisser ranked enemies at the end of the day. So, and against them, you may just run an entirely different Listel, right? Rather than bringing the AoE skills like Blood Dance and Mindbore, you may end up bringing Siphon for a single target strike skill, and let's say the Reaper's Touch to basically counter enemy healers, and then the final skill would be a 1-point skill. So you might end up bringing Seal or Bloody Deluge or Demon God's Bulwark rather than, So lots of options there. Even though she would not be as ideal in those situations, she would still be usable as a character. But it does depend on how high your magic defense is in that case. And the last character that is, in my opinion, guaranteed for me to bring is currently Luna, because my Luna has her double class mastery. Even though she is currently only 4 stars, right? Getting 100 shards is not too bad. It's 20 days. So I could farm up Luna to at least 5 stars. I doubt I'll be able to farm her up to 6 stars, but 5 stars is very possible. The only thing about Luna is whether I leave her in her Bone Knight class or change her over to Pegasus Master. I personally favor kind of a Pegasus Master Luna, preferably one that's running Wind Spiral and Raging Thunder, and then the last skill would be either, all her 1-point skills are good, so it would be either Move Again, it could be Gale for multiple actions, or it could be Wind Pressure for an AoE blast that debuffs enemies. All of them were viable. Definitely one of the characters I'm going to finish up for my party. So there's the 8 characters for DPS that I currently am planning. And then, so this puts me at 13 characters, and I have 2 viable character slots. Actually, I should quickly mention Luna's equipment, shouldn't I? Equipment-wise, Uller's Bow doesn't really matter in the enchant, but the Twilight Armor has 11% magic defense increase and some defense increase. Twilight Helmet has magic defense increase and defense increase again. And the Veil of Light has magic defense 10%, 3% hit points. It's a kind of odd enchant values because ideally you want hit points more than defense increase, but it's also acceptable for defense because she already has high magic defense, so she already counters magic attacks. So increasing defense would raise her power against melee attacks. As it is, these enchant values are good enough that I'm not going to re-roll them. That's basically what it comes down to. I don't have the gold. So, at this point, I guess I'll talk about the characters that I plan to build up. And the characters I plan to build up, it's actually rather tough for me to decide. And that's why I've been very, very torn in this video. Because there's so many options in characters. One character I think I'm absolutely going to definitely build up for Summit Arena is Varna. Because Varna has several very useful skills. First, she has Aim, the 1-point skill, to basically refresh her cooldowns and allows her to move 2 more tiles. So a flying Varna actually has 7 movement, not 5. Next, it combos incredibly well with her 1000 arrows. The 1000 arrows has a 2-turn cooldown. If you use aim after that, the cooldown goes into 1, right? So with aim, it's very easy to constantly toss out 1000 arrows at the enemy. Even if you don't kill them, you're dispelling buffs that the enemies have. And dispelling those buffs can really mess up your enemy, right? If they lose their attack buff, they won't hit you very hard, right? If they lose their plus 30% magic defense buff, then they'll be much more vulnerable to your AoEs after Varna's attack. So aim and 1000 arrows is a very powerful and deadly combination for Varna. In addition to that combo, you can very easily bring mass attack on her. So if you weren't able to bring a faction buffer, Varna with mass attack can almost act as a faction buff in the sense that at least you'll get the plus 20% attack increase. So yeah, Varna may be another character, is very likely, I should say, to be another character that I build up. In addition, her being part of the Empire faction as well as Dark means that Bernhard, Bozel, and Leon can all buff her up, right? So I won't have that many problems with faction buffs, potentially. So Varna is one of the options. Alte Muller is another option, right? Simply because a flying Alte Muller can tank, he can faction buff, he can he can AoE blast with Dragon's Breath, and he can single target strike with Raging Thunder. Like Bernhard, Alte Muller is a very flexible and useful character. The difference is Alte Muller has 5 mobility as opposed to Bernhard's 3. So that's actually a very big advantage to using Alte Muller. In addition, if you have Alte Muller and Leon, you can generally force the enemies to ban one of these characters, because very few enemies will allow you to bring both Alte Muller and Leon together, right? Unless they want to face a Leon who can have unlimited mobility on the map. So Alte Muller fits into my party incredibly well because I use Leon. It's almost forcing a ban of one of these characters. That's basically what it means. So just another character that can fit into my party very well. There's 4 other characters that I'm actually considering in addition to these. So it's just a very tough choice. First is Rachel. Okay, because I run Langrisser as my tank, Rachel will have a faction buff guaranteed. And Rachel's Arcane Blast, right, dealing additional damage to mages and holy units and reducing enemies' magic defense, is just a great AoE combo with other characters. In addition, she has the option to bring Holy Word and Dark Reaper for single target strikes. And her talent is Insanity, right? Healing up allies, dispelling debuffs, and increased damage. Just Rachel, the combination of everything makes her a great character. The big drawback for me personally is that my Rachel is 3 stars. In order to raise her, she's one of the characters that the higher star level she is, the more deadly and powerful she is, right? Kind of like Lana in that sense. So whether I'll have time to raise up my Rachel to 5 stars is very debatable. In truth, it's not likely for Season 1. So what's likely to happen is Rachel will be one of the characters I potentially bring for Season 2 of Summit Arena. But for Season 1, she can't be used. That's basically it. But once again, an amazing character. That's what Rachel is. The other characters I'm considering is Renee, because I got 2 copies of her when I was drawing for Renee and Leonhard. So my Renee is already starting at 4 stars as opposed to starting at 3 stars. There's a 50 shard advantage. Once again though, I'll have to commit into double class mastery into Renee, right? But the combination of her Renee Annihilation skill and Calamity Throw and the ability to inflict debuffs on the enemies and so on just makes her a great character in general. She has all these single target strike skills countering almost every kind of class of enemy characters that you'll encounter. So very flexible mage for Summit Arena. The only huge drawback to her is, just like the other mages, she only has 3 mobility. So you'll probably have to roll, you'll likely have to consider maybe rolling Magic Enchant or maybe rolling Breeze to allow her to easily get into enemy range to throw Renee Annihilations. But that will be an experiment in progress, right? I may initially start her off with, let's say, a set of Magic Enchant gear, like maybe give her Lana set of gear, and then see how it plays out. Because she does, after all, have the Renee Annihilation to hit enemies, or sorry, she does have the Calamity Throw to hit enemies at long range, right? Since there's 7 block range in a straight line. Other than Renee, who is another character I would have to build up the star levels on, the last 2 characters I'm considering would be SR characters rather than SSR. The first SR character that I'm really considering is actually Liffany, right? She just recently got her 2nd class mastery with Summoner and Hermit. And Hermit, allowing with the Summon Bomb skill, allows you to use her to do some turn management of your characters, right? She can summon the bomb early and allow you to act with multiple characters in a row at the end of your turn, if you're going 2nd. So, and in addition to that, Liffany would have access to aim to allow her to get into range of enemies to apply her Magic Creation talent. The big drawback of Liffany is I would have to commit 3 runestones into using her. That's very expensive, especially right now. So Liffany may end up being a character I use for Season 2, just like Rachel. But for Season 1, she is probably unused simply due to the high number of runestones I would need to commit into using Liffany. And the last character I'm considering is Imelda. Even though my Imelda is 5 stars and not 6 stars, it is a big disadvantage in the sense that there is Queen's Gauntlet does not work as well. For example, at 5 stars, Queen's Gauntlet only buffs up 3 friendly units. At 6 stars, it buffs up 4 friendly units. In other words, it would buff up all your allies, right? Because it's a 5v5 battle for Summit Arena. So there is that lack. In addition, her unit damage increase is only 17% at 5 stars, and at 6 stars it becomes the full 20%. So there's a bit less damage increase from Queen's Gauntlet as well. However, the thing is, first, you're getting a 17% additional damage increase. That's already pretty nice. Second, I did actually buy her special equipment, the Gorgeous Red, so that because this piece of equipment makes your allies immune to fixed damage. And that's the most important point that I want to bring up. I don't have any of those Bracer emblems or Swordsmith medals, so I am incredibly vulnerable to enemy Listels, right? Having Imelda in my party would, with Gorgeous Red, could give me that immunity to fixed damage that I'm lacking. In truth, I think that Imelda is likely going to be the character that I'm going to bring for Season 1. The other nice thing about bringing Imelda is, even if I fail to bring her, the enemy will be forced to ban her, right? If they are bringing Listel, they will have to ban my Imelda. So there's that nice feature of being able to force the enemy to ban certain characters due to the advantages that they provide. That's what Imelda offers. Alright, so that pretty much covers all the characters that I plan to use for Summit Arena. It's really a tough choice. Oh, actually, I don't think I mentioned Olivier at all, did I? Olivier is another potential because you get him at 5 stars just from the event, right? And his combination of skills, once again, aim, he can use Roaring Bomb to debuff the enemy damage. He can use Excitation to increase their mobility and grant them a regenerate buff. He can even, from Bard, toss out Heartless Requiem, preventing enemies from being able to act again. Right? So just Olivier is a character with lots of great support effects. The only flaw of Olivier is getting his equipment. As an archer, it's going to be pretty hard to build up a set of equipment for Olivier. At least for me personally. So there is that drawback. So, two other characters I've also considering. You can see there's just so many good characters. It's harder to figure out which characters you want to use than anything else. The last two, but these will be the last two. The first one I'm considering is Ferrokia, because Ferrokia, her maneuver skill will be incredibly useful for Summon Arena. Right? If you can use maneuver to swap positions with the enemy, pulling them closer to you to kill, that would be great. The only problem with this is the only way you can actually swap is if this attack is not guarded, right? So if the enemy is within the guard range of their tank, this won't work. So maybe Ferrokia might not be the best, but she also does now have her access to her Dark Phantom branch, right? And from the Dark Phantom branch, she can bring a snare skill to do additional damage to the enemies. So in that sense, depending on the enemy, you may try to bring maneuver. If you can't bring maneuver, you can have Ferrokia bring snare as well as, let's say, plunder for 2 single target enemy strike skills. Combined with her talent, you can attack twice and probably kill off an enemy. So Ferrokia is another reasonably flexible character in terms of the skills that she brings, and she offers good damage as a DPS. Her big drawback, once again, like very many characters, is free mobility, and she has no movement increasing skills. So getting Ferrokia into range of the enemies may be a struggle, like so many other characters. Other than that, the last and final character I was considering is a character that's not released yet. It's a character that comes from the Sakura Wars banner, which is the SR character, Iris Chateaubriand. Because Iris is actually a great healer, from what I've heard, and she's an SR that you'll get at 5 stars, just from the event. So that occurs in early October, in fact. So it is later than, it's, I guess, 2 months away from now, but if you have 2 runestones into committing into her, and you have guild medals saved up, she's a character that you can get and bring to the battlefield almost right away. So it's, as you can see, I'm just struggling with my decision for my characters in Season 1. It's really hard to narrow it down to those 15 characters, but I am going to be trying to do my best to do so. So that's pretty much concludes this video. I believe I went over my current gear sets in at least briefly, maybe not in complete detail, but I did go over them, most of them. I think you can see that my healer sets in particular aren't exactly finished yet. Most of them still have SR gear as opposed to full SSR sets. So that's part of the works in progress. I also have a second mage set of gear other than Lena's, right? And the second mage set of gear is currently on Rachel. It's yet another Blue Moon. A level 50 Depths Robe, because once again, it's just an SSR that I have built up. As usual, I am lacking helmets, so she's currently using a Warlock's Hood or a Sage's Hat. But I feel by the end of September, I'll have all 3 of these helms completed. The second Dark Crown, the Odin's Battle Helm, the Charon, as well as the Soul Stealer headdress. So by that time, I'll have a bit more flexibility in helms. So that's when I can kind of make it more decisions about which helms to equip on whom. And the accessory on this final mage set is currently, there's actually 2 options. I have a Star Earring at level 40. I also have a Drop Near at level 40. So those are both int increasing accessories, and I can choose to equip either one on my mage. So I haven't quite decided on which one yet. I also have a bunch of holy rings. You can see here, right? There's 2 level 50 holy rings, and I actually have a 3rd holy ring that's currently unused. So in terms of gear for mages, I'm pretty close to ready. It's just, once again, it's more, I haven't finalized it yet, and I kind of want to keep it as a surprise against my enemies. So let's do a quick recap. I've covered my first 4 characters pretty briefly. I've covered these 4 characters pretty briefly and their gears on them and the changes that I have to make. I've talked about Tieris, Landius, Listel, and Luna. So these 12 have all been talked about. Juggler was talked about. The gear set on Rachel was covered. And then I talked about, I guess, the gear set on Sophia as well. So that, I guess, is the 15 sets of gear I currently have. But there are actually other sets that I have in existence right now. For example, on Chris, I think, I have a Gift of Eternal Life with a level 40 Devout Coat, level 50 Sage's Hat, and a level 50 True Cross for yet another int increasing artifact. So this Gift of Eternal Life plus True Cross combo could be used for sure. Whether it's on Chris or whether it's on Chloe is another viable alternative, right? It's probably going to move on to Chloe for PvP, for Summit Arena. So, and I think overall the Tree of Life enchant is fine. So that's yet another set of gear that I can bring to the battlefield for my characters. It really just doesn't end. There's just all these different sets of gears that I have in existence. The one thing I'm really lacking in terms of gear right now is a second assassin set. At least that's what I think. I do have 2 bows, right? The Bloody Melody with the plus 15% attack, as well as an Uller's Bow, but that's currently on Luna. So I'm probably going to retask this Uller's Bow for a second ranged attacker. The big drawback of that retasking is while Bloody Melody increases your attack by 10%, Uller's Bow decreases your damage by 10%. So you're losing close to 20% damage, I would say, right? So that's why Uller's Bow can be hard to consider as a good piece of equipment for Summit Arena. Because Summit Arena is a situation where you basically need to one-shot your enemies, right? You either need to AoE blast them a lot, or you need to one-shot them. So we'll see with regards to the Uller's Bow. And with regards to a second set of assassin gear. At this point, I think that really concludes my sets of equipment, doesn't it? I currently basically have 3 sets of melee character equipment. Mage sets, as in just pure int increases, I have 2, which is Lana and the one that's on Rachel. Bozel has its own unique set of gear. Same thing with Luna. Zerida currently has the only Archer and Assassin set. Ledin has a tank set of gear. Lendius has a tank set of gear. Juggler has a tank set of gear. His set is not exactly complete yet, but it will be. Listel has her own custom set of gear. As for the rest, they're mostly mostly healer sets. Liana has one, Tieris has one, Sophia has one, and Chris has one. And in terms of gear that I'm currently building, believe it or not, there's a whole bunch. For example, Jessica currently has yet another Blue Moon at level 30. If I pick up 2 more of these, I'll have a level 50 Blue Moon, right? The Baldur's White Robe is one that I'm currently building up as well. And Hein has a few pieces of equipment like an Astaroth, right? A Death's Robe, a Sage's Hat, and a Vidar's Rose. So there's actually a whole bunch of other mage sets that are available, but they all depend on what kind of accessories and random pieces of equipment I get as I farm dragons, right? In addition to all these, if I bring up my equipment page, I actually have a lot of SSRs still, right? There's, for example, this is the equivalent of a level 50 clothesline pole. I don't really have any characters that need it, especially for PvP, but I have it. I have an Eye of the Beholder if I want to give it to a mage. I have a Lone Star Amulet that can be built as a second Lone Star Armlet. I have a King's Crown, which I really do need to build up, because once it hits level 50, King's Crown is one of the best helms for flyers and assassins. So this is one piece of equipment that will definitely be upgraded to be equipped on one of my characters. I have another carbon fiber helmet, which is almost at level 40 as soon as I upgrade it. There's a second Vampire's Mask available. There's a second Monkey King's Vest available. There's a level 50 Peacemaker available, and as well as a level 40 second Peacemaker, depending on who I build up. For example, if I build an Ultimuller, he's going to get a Peacemaker for sure. There's also 2 Seal Guardians, so that if I so wish, I could theoretically build up a 4th Seal Guardian. Or I could turn all of this stuff into ore for more Auriculum ore to upgrade equipment. Continuing on, you can see there's a Holy Grail, a second Veil of Light, a Slayer's Emblem, the 3rd Holy Ring, a second Winged Shin Guards, a Gaia's Helmet, Mjolnir, 2 Oaths of Justices, right? One could go on Lestel, for example, the other I'm just holding on to, as well as a second Dragon Slayer Gram and a Cursed Lance that could be upgraded for a Pegasus Luna, completing her set of gear. So you can see, overall, there's a lot of gear that I have sitting around. Just haven't really decided what to do with it. Although I will break down this tiara. This is the one piece of equipment that's utterly useless. So that is a guaranteed breakdown. So that's my current status in total. Summed up. In terms of equipment and in terms of heroes, I've covered everything now. So the final thing I have to cover, this video is turning into a really long one, I have to say. The final thing to talk about is bonds. And in terms of bond upgrades, I've actually fallen behind a bit. This is because while I did my best to do Eternal Temples every single day, I actually forgot to do the Phoenix twice. And it was a killer, because the Phoenix is the boss that drops double the amount of items, since the Phoenix only occurs once every week, only on Sundays. So I'm basically missing like 48 of the basic Phoenix items, right? And then another, I think, 24 of the second Phoenix items. And that's really limiting my bond upgrades as a result. For example, is it Luna that needs... Yes, for example, Luna needs a lot of Fires of Origins right now, and I can't upgrade her, right? So, and then there's also another character who I think is stuck waiting for Fires of Origin. It's not Leanna. I can't recall off the top of my head. Was it... Nope, Chloe doesn't even have access to it yet. Was it Juggler? Nope, not Juggler either. Well, regardless, I'm very short right now. I'm desperately short on the Phoenix items as well as Scylla items. So bond upgrades are kind of stuck. But in the bonds, characters that have been completed include Leon, fully complete at this time until the release of the final Time Rift maps. There's Langrisser, who is fully completed at 96% as well. There is Elwyn, who is almost fully completed. Effectively he is, except for 2 more toughness upgrades, which to me is not a priority at this time. Zerida is also fully completed, except for 2 toughness upgrades. Once again, because the toughness upgrades at from level 7 to 8 to 9 are very expensive in Bursting Heart Keys. So I don't think that they're particularly worth doing until later on. Lana is the one that I need to finish. She needs to finish off her Heart Bond. But once she's finished, I don't see her having any problem either one-shotting enemies or using AoE blast against enemies. So that's why I'm probably going to keep the Tenuous Robe on my Lana. I don't see a need to use the Black Bride. Ledin is yet another character that's effectively fully upgraded. No, I didn't upgrade his Strength Bond maximized, but the Strength Bond only increases his skill, and in the first place, Ledin's skill value is not very high. Bozel, fully upgraded, effectively. I never even bothered to unlock his 5th bond. And I don't see a need to, but he is considered fully upgraded. Liana is a work in progress. She needs a bit more heart bonds, she needs a bit more toughness bond, she needs a bit more strength bond. I don't plan to actually upgrade her to max for a little while because I think most of my opponents are going to ban my Liana as the first healer to ban. So my bigger priority is to upgrade Tieris and Chloe up to a similar level than to use up to max out Liana. Luna is surprisingly upgraded, right? Max 9 and 1. Just like any other character that relies on magic defense, she does not need this strength bond upgraded. Her only thing is her heart bond that I need to raise up to level 10. But once that's done, she is fully upgraded and she will be very usable for Summit Arena. Listel is another work in progress. The heart bond is at level 4. So it's a struggle to upgrade her heart bond as well. But everything else is maxed out. Max, 9 and 1. Juggler. Juggler's a work in progress, but even though he's a work in progress, he's at 70%. Max, 7, 3, and level 2 on the heart bond. So, being your tank, he will need to be fully upgraded, just like any other tank, right? Your tank characters need to survive hits so that they can be healed up. So that means you need upgraded toughness bond. You need upgraded heart bond for more hit points, defense, and magic defense values. The attack bond for him must be upgraded because he does rely on his attack value, unlike other tanks who replace it. So just like Landius, Juggler, in order to be used, needs everything upgraded. We're talking the full maximum 96% with max 9 and maximum heart bond. Bernhard is surprisingly at 68%. And the reason for that is because I never bothered to upgrade him any further after after a while I stopped using Bernhard for anything except Thunder Dragons. And against Thunder Dragons, he had enough hit points to survive, and he did what he needed to do, which was some damage and good tankiness, and faction buffing. So as a result, he never had his heart bond upgraded, and I stalled on both his upgrades at level 5. But work in progress, just like everyone else. It shouldn't be too hard to upgrade my Bernhard. I probably won't do the heart bond for a while, to be fair, but with, let's say, max 9, he'll be hitting hard enough with his sword dance or whatever, and he'll be able to tank enough damage anyways. Equipment, depending on his equipment, of course. Other characters whose bonds I've upgraded but won't be using for Summit Arena is first Hein. Hein has max 1 and 9 on the attack because Hein needed maximum attack for PvE content like Scylla. Chris is pretty much in the exact same situation. Max 2 and 5. In the case of Chris, she has less attack because she was more there to be a secondary healer and do some damage, but she didn't need maximum attack like Hein. But that's also why my Chris actually struggles to kill a lot of enemies in the Scylla battle. It's because she is 4 stars as well, so that's another reason why I did, I guess, what you call the bare minimum upgrades to use her for Scylla. Cherie, I really have not touched for the longest time. Max 7, 5, 4. Surprisingly, Heart Bond's at level 2. I guess I had some materials and I upgraded it once. But there you go. That's my Cherie. She doesn't even have her double class mastery. She's at 4 stars, so she's not very usable in general for me. Sophia is decently upgraded too. Max 9 for her soldiers and 6 for her intelligence increase. She doesn't have access to her toughness bond because I never used Juggler to clear her Gate of Fate. But if I do decide to go back to this to do it with Juggler, I can unlock that one. However, I'm not planning at this time to use Sophia for Summit Arena. So there's no reason to unlock this bond or do any further upgrades to Sophia at this time. All meta, bonds wise, once again 60%, and once again high attack increase value. That pretty much sums it up. The high attack and int increase is because I use all meta to heal a lot of my characters, right? So increasing her int was quite important. As for increasing her toughness and survivability, it didn't matter. Not for any of the fights that she participates in, because she's never attacked. For example, Phoenix 65, where I use her, she was not attacked ever. Tieres is a work in progress. It's been only pretty recently that I started upgrading Tieres, but I don't plan to max her out until I get her to 6 stars. It's that simple. So for now, this is her bond upgrade. Max 6, 2 and 3. Until she gets into 6-star level, I don't think she's really all that usable for Summit Arena. The 80% chance of healing between battles is very luck-based. It's very dangerous. So we'll see. I'll slowly upgrade her up though, because in 20 days or so, I'm going to have Tieres at 6 stars. So she will need upgrades. Other than that, I don't think any of my remaining characters have bond upgrades done on them. For example, Rachel, she's 40%. 6 max 6 1 1. So not really upgraded. Silver Wolf, 46%, so not really usable. Alton Muller, 36%, completely not usable. Even Leticia, who I use for a lot of my arena fights, barely has any upgrades. 6 4 6 1 1. So that pretty much concludes. Oh, I did miss one character, Chloe. And Chloe is also a work in progress. As another healer, 7 3 6 1. Really needs bond upgrades. That's basically it. And heart bond upgrades. Just there's a lot of characters I still need to work on. So that's what it comes down to. So this pretty much concludes my video. You can see that in terms of the characters I've been using for content, they're all pretty close to done. In terms of the other characters that I need to start building up because of Summit Arena, very few of them have been touched because I've been upgrading basically one per week, more or less. And this week was finishing up Listel. So next week we'll probably be finishing up all of Juggler's bonds here, right? And then the week after that will probably be Chloe. And then the week after that will probably be Tieres. And that will pretty much have me fully ready for Summit Arena. Or so I hope. Alright, so thanks for bearing with me through this extremely long video. Once again, I hope you found all this information useful. And you can see that Summit Arena, because you're preparing 15 characters, it's an incredibly complex system. Whether it's gear, whether it's enchants, whether it's bonds, whether it's the soldiers for your heroes, whether it's runestone usage for your characters, you know, there's a lot of planning involved for Summit Arena in all of this. So my plan, my current setup of 15 characters, it's at the end of the day, it's pretty Empire based. Other than my tanks, it's primarily Empire based, and which is kind of ironic because my tanks, one of them is Langrisser, who buffs Ye Less Legends, right? And the other tank is Juggler, who buffs Origins of Light. So in terms of those synergies, I'm a little bit off, I have to say. Although there are some of these synergies. For example, if I manage to get Juggler with Tierras and with Luna, that would be great, right? Because all three of those would benefit from Juggler's faction buff, right? If I get Zerida, actually, Zerida would buff up quite a few of my characters too. It could buff up, for example, Juggler. Actually, that might be the only one for now. So, yeah, but Zerida could alternatively buff up Juggler and maybe let Juggler change up his skills. Or Zerida would run, as usual, her, Alhazard Bloodthirster with Killing Blow. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what I see for Summit Arena is you're not always going to be able to get faction buffs. I tried as much as possible to make sure my Empire characters could get faction buffs, because I'm probably going to have Leon, I'm probably going to have Bernhard, and I'm probably going to have Ultimuller as well, which is 3 separate faction buffers for Empire and strategists. Luna will be able to be buffed by both Juggler and Ultimuller. And Lana could be buffed by Bozal as well as Luna. So there's a lot of little synergies in place in terms of faction buffs. I'm bringing a lot of characters who can use faction buffs. But at the end of the day, we'll see how it goes. It's very possible, for example, that Varna's mass attack will end up being critical for success because of the plus 20% attack and int increase here. It may also be that I will have to get Liana her Gospel skill, because Gospel will allow her to buff up a single target with 20% attack and defense. And it may end up being that I have to go back on what I said and end up bringing Sophia after all, because Sophia has a strengthened skill, right? Once again, 20% attack and int increase. So we'll see. I mean, the current setup to me looks fine with the 13 core characters. I need to figure out those final 2, which more and more likely seems to be Ultimuller with 1 other character. And definitely for season 2, my whole party will be changing up entirely. By season 2, I expect that I will 100% bring Leonhard at that point, right? And if I bring Leonhard, I may possibly bring Joshua to support him as well. So season 2, my party will entirely change. Season 1, it's going to be more of a who do I have that will work. Alright, that concludes this video. Once again, thanks for bearing with me. I hope you found all this information useful and informative. Like I said, my party for Summit Arena has not been finalized. It's just been building up characters as I go. So, on that note, Nitro out.